The meta is changing and ever fluid, just like the green tide. So today we'll talk about the tactics, tips, and tricks that orcs need to tap back into, be reminded of, or at least make weary. So for the orcs, we'll still have their presence known, though our meta shifted in a way that we're not winning as much as we did before. So with that being said, let's get into what we're going to unpack here today. We'll have some detachment tips, some how to play tips, how to utilize unit combinations and leaders, from intermediate to beginner to refreshers for people who are going back into the new and well adapting meta and feeling like they are not sure where to go. So let's answer some questions today. Let's unpack some theories and be excited, because the WAAAGH is never brought down and is always changing and fluid, because that's how WAAAGH energy rolls. Whoa, right? So let's be pumped, guys. That's what I'm talking about. The chat's pretty excited. Happy 4th of July, and let's get into it. But of course, let's also get into today's sponsors, the Baron of Dice. So they allow us to do our paint competition. So check them out in the description for the high quality dice and channel dice that are custom for WAAAGH tactics. To support us, check out the discount code in the description, because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Forge Fire Gaming, where they have competitive balanced terrain set that I use at home that come pre-painted with acrylic slotted bases, which allow for easy removal. GW sort of layout, easy to slide off and replace. So check them out in the description as well. So let's start off with the movement tips, board control tips. Then we'll move on to Dakka support, some detachment talk, and then we'll end off with some combat combinations and tips and tricks, as well as a list to round things out, because everybody knows that Horde is leading the way right now. So with that being said, of course, this is live. So if you guys are here, get stuck in, yell back. You got some arguments or debates, things you want to chip in on, say it, because there's people that are going to see this video, and this is a live conversation. That way we can keep this going and keep everybody in a positive and forward momentum way. Just like our boy Andrew Stone for 10 WAAAGH Tactics memberships. Whoa, let's go get super supportive. We really much appreciate your generosity. It's a huge deal. And any more super chats, we'll check them later. So with the movement, board control tips and tricks, as we move into this meta, it's very important that people understand that speed is the name of the game. Where our combats are going to take place is hyper important, right? We need to understand that whether you're playing Horde, Bully Boys, some sort of Dread Mob, a tactical brigade, everything wants to happen on the other side of the midway point on the battlefield, as the armies that are engaged are either faster than us to a certain degree, able to come down and make 6-inch deep strikes like Death Guard, whether it's Emperor's Children that are staging up in rhinos and able to get out and advance and charge, whether it's some variation of CSM that wants to do the same thing. We have World Eaters with about 10-inch movement, with the Berserker bricks that are running around in rhinos. So we're thinking about all these units and these varieties that are coming into play, as well as the weird standouts like maybe an Eldar list here or there, a Tau list here or there, maybe Thousand Suns creeping back into the game. But Orcs always had answers for a lot of these meta bullies that are coming out to play. So even though we might not have the best run for a 5 to 6 round event where we do pick up a loss because we run into some matchup that's really hard counter into us, that doesn't mean that we can't overcome a lot of these armies. So as we continue through all these slides and these breakdowns, keep in mind that I am considering those armies and how they are in their current state at the time of this recording. So you might not be able to incorporate every single tool to beat everybody. That's why Orcs win rate is where it's at currently, at 40% win rate. But that doesn't mean you can't overcome a large variety of the field that there is out there and actually overcome a lot of the really strong armies. So these are options, and sometimes you can't fill everything into your list to counter everybody. That's the name of 40K, but that doesn't mean you can't have a good time crumping. So I want to start off with understanding that we have something, the combos themselves. So we have the Weird Boy with the Breaker Boy combo. Of course, we understand that that comes with Horde. You can pop Here We Go, so you can cover the distance for a +2 on that to get it a little bit closer. We have a Death Killer War Trike with Super Cyborg Body that is found in the Horde detachment. Now, some people may look at this and say, hey, this doesn't really stand ground anymore. It's been active since Index Hammer, but you're not seeing it prevalent here. Remember, this is for everybody from beginner to intermediate to experience. So this is for experimenting and understanding that we have these tools. If you are going to get into a fight with something like World Eaters, for example, where they like to start the game off with throwing forward a chaos spawn, where they'll possibly give it Lance and additional AP. Most other units that are Orks that are coming out early game are going to actually get picked up. For example, if you took out like a simple unit of flash kits or boys, this is not a fight that they're actually winning. But if Deathkiller Wartrike not only can stand on our natural expansion objective or possibly harass the enemies, but with its OC, its built-in 5-up invuln, and the fact that it's going to have a 4-up feel no pain means that even if that unit comes crashing down on it, the Deathkiller Wartrike mathematically has a great chance of surviving, still picking up that primary and possibly even dragging down one of those chaos spawns. So this is one of those units that forces something like an Emperor's Children or World Eaters to actually start investing real units to dig this unit out. Now, of course, there are counters, like if you allow Forge Fiend to directly counter it and line up really close targets on it. But whenever somebody does come crashing down on us to try to dig us out of an objective, that usually sets up good charges. So if you're someone that maybe doesn't have 5 trucks, for example, and you're stuck with 2 or 3, and you have a Deathkiller Wartrike, or if you want to bring something back like that. Now, if you do stick the bikers on there, of course, the Blade of Wounds make him go even further. If you have something like an Imperial Knight with the autocannons, for example, strength 9, -1, 3 damage, of course, he can get additional AP. They might be able to actually strip cover. But if he's not actually able to strip cover from the emulators that are getting close, then the fact that the biker has a 4-up armor save and they're going to be in cover, it means that they can end up taking 4-ups, 5-ups, and start peeling some of those wounds away. So the Deathkiller Wartrike requires more investment than simply 1 to 2 baby knights to really dig out the Deathkiller Wartrike. So understand that these end up not holding against anything in the game. Like it can't just survive against everything in the game, but it will require over investment, which sets up our wall turns and our charges. So let's move over to Zagra Wartsnag. A lot of people are familiar with him if you watch the channel, but something that I want to keep in mind is think of him as a big tar pit OC bomb. There are units that exist right now that we simply might not be able to kill or don't want to interact with on their terms. That being said, when you do activate your WAAAGH and Zod gets up the field and maybe you cut the field in half and you say, I'm going to kill this half of Death Guard, and then I'm going to tar pit this side, whether they're the Plague Marine bricks, or I'm going to reach out and touch multiple of those drones. The Demon Prince is going to heroically intervene. In that case, your Zagra unit can end up tar pitting and holding that unit in place. All of those units are now stuck in combat with Zod, and you can carry on the other side of the battlefield, getting your fights in with maybe the Terminators, maybe a different Plague Marine. Maybe you're picking up the Plague Marine bricks and the Rhinos. There's so many other units that you understand that require a lot of our investment and our WAAAGH to really dig out. Therefore, Zod acts as more like a tar pit OC bomb. Not only am I shutting you down on primary, but I'm also stopping you from getting these really hyper elite units to get into fights where they want to be. If you're playing against a World Eaters army and they want their Demon Prince that has the enhancement to reduce damage by 1, and then he can also pop a CP so that he can reduce damage again. So for example, your Breaker Boys that are 3 damage, if they go into that Demon Prince, he can drop their damage down to damage 1. That's not something you want to even get into combat with on the wall. You'd much rather put them into a different Demon Prince, a Hellbrew, their Forge Fiend. There's different targets that you're like, I'm going to kill. And this is where Zod can end up kind of holding that unit in place and playing the odds of, hey, I'm -1 to wound and I have a 5-up invuln. Let's just roll it out. Let's see what happens. So Zod still has his way to play, whether it's not just I have to kill you, but I'm splitting the field in half where I'm making you force this engagement on this side of the field while I have my invuln where I'm most durable, and I'm picking up the other side of the field with my WAAAGH and continuing momentum. So then we move to, if you're playing Bully Boys, for example, the Teleporter. Pressure, advancing up the field, board presence is the name of the game. Bully Boys has a little bit of a showing recently, and for that reason, it's pressure, right? The fact that you can call a WAAAGH and follow up with an additional WAAAGH in these fields where the game is nice and condensed because the difference of the mission changes and the secondary changes means that everything's happening right in your face. Orcs don't really care about the challenger cards in our benefit. If anything, it's mostly the enemy's benefit because we're usually up on momentum. Therefore, make the fight. If you can't win it indefinitely, as in I can't table them, then I'm going to engage them in the side of the battlefield where they're not scoring any points, and that's beyond the halfway point off the objectives. Bully Boys actually allows you to get that into play, and the Teleporter is my favorite way to kind of continue that momentum if you're looking at how I'd be incorporating that. Now, we're going to have a Bully Boys video in itself, so don't worry, that's coming out soon, an analysis breakdown. So Bully Boys are on the way. Then we have Follow Me Lads, the War Boss variation onto the War Horde. Now, War Horde itself, its value isn't only its killing potential, but its durability and mobility. So remember getting your Follow Me Lads, whether we go these combinations of killing units we're going to show off with devastating damage, Follow Me Lads on top of Here We Go, whether it's on Ghaz or any of these other really viable units going forward. Something you need to keep in your mind as an Orc player. We have Glory Hogs on the Hunt. Pressure is the name of the game, as I said earlier. Being able to get big bricks of squigs up the field, even if you think that squigs themselves don't need to consistently be on the list on the Hunt because they're too big, they can get shot up too easily. That early one, getting up the field, engaging the enemy where they don't want to be engaged. Death Guard does not want to have to fight the pigs on their side of the field. Yes, they can, but the fact that they typically want to bring stuff down from reserve, the fact that their drones don't really want to be stuck in combat anyways, the point is you need this brick and you need this momentum shift forward up the field. Then you can end up picking up stuff from reserve from your backfield, whether it's 20 unit of mobs, a stag of boys, for example, or the people are disembarking from the kill rigs. Nonetheless, we have a hunt video coming out as well, as those are the two detachments I've been working on the most and playing with the most. So don't sleep on those armies. They've been having performances here and there slipping through. So if you're an Orc player that's really trying to get them, keep in mind we're going to cover combos that you're going to be able to utilize in those detachments as well throughout this video. Then we have the faster than use if you're running into Cult of Speed. Something that we actually seen over the weekend was people taking bricks of mega knobs with faster than use and having that tar pit saturation of I'm going to have all the bikers, the death coptas, the buggies, and then I'm also going to actually have a big fast mega knob unit that's going to force its 5-up, feel no pain upon you, and actually cover that distance with Cult of Speed. So this tar pitting maneuver, pressuring style of game is incorporated into multiple detachments, and Orcs themselves as our I'm sorry, our kind of our traits, our known qualities, our identity is what the word I was looking for. Sorry, guys, brain fart. So keep in mind that multiple detachments give access to that. That's why I want a lot of you guys to actually expand and explore as we look through this video, that I'm not going to be explicitly prescribing that you play War Horde only with the rest of the things that we talk about here. I think that Orcs are actually in a pretty interesting place to really expand their thoughts. And then even if our win rate continues to sink, then GW gives us some buffs here, and we can explore from there even further. But something else that I only think Orc players need to remember is the taxi maneuver, leapfrogging maneuver with transport. So starting something like if I am going for a truck spam, or I'm someone who owns a battle wagon and only 2 to 3 trucks, or I'm playing with a Titanic unit that has a transport capability, keep in mind you can start something like a low value asset, whether it's Grot, a Flash Kid, a Boy unit, a Storm Boy unit, and those Titanic units, or a battle wagon. You can start them inside of the transport, take advantage of the 3-inch disembark, and then also move that unit so you can get further up the field. As like I said earlier, people playing infiltration, people playing early game pressure and staging is more common in the game, more prevalent. So you taking advantage of your transporting leap frog capability, where I start the game, my Grots get out, my boys get out, they move simply forward, they get an early game charge off onto Poxwalkers, for example, and then something else, my SWAT team, maybe a Flash Get and a Breaker Boy unit, embark into the truck, and then I now move my truck into its now more optimized staging position for my following turn. So taking advantage of the leapfrogging capability, whether it's I put a 5 or 10 man unit of Storm Boys, or I put a 10-man unit of boys and a 5-man unit of Flash Gets in my battle wagon, those 2 units disembark to get up the field aggressively on my tactical brigade list. I shout orders to those units when my mech disembarks, but then I in behind that embark a 20-man unit of snaggers with the B Snagger Boy unit, and then my battle wagon moves forward. So there's ways that you can take advantage of your battle wagons or your transports themselves by embarking and disembarking different units. So Orc players kind of let that go a lot of the time, and they just think about moving forward in a straight line and getting where they want. Think about what can actually maneuver quicker up the field with some advances and some disembarkation. So be happy about that, Orcs. Repositioning maneuvers, whether shock jump dragstas, weird boys, redeploys with tactical brigade or the hunt, are something that should be considered if it's local to your meta, if enemies allow opportunities for that, because a lot of elite armies are coming out to play, and pressure is the name of the game. So let's move on to some Dakka combos. So we're going to switch it up with some tips and tricks from the Dakka detachments, and we're going to talk about something that I think Orc players forget about a lot as well, is utilizing the fire deck with the mech support. One of the Dakka combos that's been slept on that people forget about is just taking advantage of having a solo mech, giving some sort of truck or even a battle wagon. A lot of people are going to say, whoa, I'm never taking my T12 off your battle wagon. I totally understand that. High level competitive play, I would never suggest that based off what we know now. But as you explore as Orc players, our battle wagons still do have 10 if you do remove that firing deck, and you can take advantage of Ludas shooting out of your trucks, for example, with their firing deck 12. That we like to talk about, where say that I'm picking a Big Mac and some Ludas in there, and typically my Luda unit wants to hold a long firing lane, but they're so soft. They're like paper soft. I don't want them to just be standing there. But I have maybe a one Luda unit on its own because that's what I own. People a lot of the time can fit 50 points of Ludas on a list just for some fire support. But then you have your Breaker Boy unit inside that truck. You advancing it forward for pressure and momentum. You understand that if the truck gets popped, you have a safe place to disembark your Breaker Boys, but you still want some shots of the field. Easily, Mac reaches over, gives +1 to hit. Your Ludas are actually shooting on 5 because the truck is the one that's shooting the auto cannons that are known as the Luda def cannons up the field, meaning it's on 5s now to 4s. Of course, that applies for tank busters. If I put 2 6-man unit of tank busters inside of a truck and my mech gives it +1 to hit, now I have 10 D3 rockets coming out of this truck that the enemy has to account for that's hitting on 4's blast. Now, of course, you're not getting your data sheet abilities from that. You are getting the weapons from themselves, though. So, for example, a snaz gun from a flashgate unit. The flashgate unit on the actual snaz gun itself has sustain 1. Therefore, if you're using firing deck from that truck, you're getting sustained one from those def guns that are now hitting on 4s from the truck themselves. Keep in mind that if you are taking transports from reserves off the battlefield onto the battlefield, you can disembark some stuff from your transport itself. So if your mech jumps out of the truck once it comes in from reserves, gives the truck +1 to hit, the truck can still shoot firing deck. The mech himself still has lone op, can still perform a secondary or score for you, and you'll still be taking advantage of its shooting potential. So people forget about that. But the other thing people forget about is the increased value of custom mega blasters and rockets in the current meta. So keep in mind, World Eaters, Emperor's Children's, Death Guard, you know what they all have in common? They're really bringing rhinos to almost every list. Rhinos are a T9 light armor chassis. We all know that the Chaos Knights, the Imperial Knights are too cheap for what they are right now, but they're all T9 as well, which means all of our just innate free war gear, from the rocket to the boys to the spanner on your Ludas, all have increased in quantity and potential of shooting. Your Titanic models have a bunch of custom mega blasters on them as well, and everything now is more viable to play, bringing down that strength threshold. Our strength 6 guns are now becoming more interesting as well. So people don't let go of the fact that those weapons now have viability and more damage potential on the elite infantry as well, whether it's a Death Shroud, where you're just saying, well, I have custom mega blaster strength 9, boom, baby, let's take it, D6 damage. We absolutely love that. Most people don't have just on hand Melta style weapons aside. Now, of course, it's not the AP, but it is the D6 damage that people are just not willing to see. And even though you as an Orc player know that you can't rely on that damage, the enemy himself can't really disrespect the fact that you have that. They're not willing to just simply take it to the face. And if they are, then give it to them. Then that's the point. That's why you have the free war gear and all these weapons that are in hand. And if you have these guns that have Dakka potential and you're slipping them on your list, utilize your truck's firing deck, whether it has a mech or not, as long as you understand the repercussions and have a position or alternate play for if the truck gets engaged. But remember, if the enemy engages your truck at range, as long as it's not like not in the gunfight with the Gladiator Lancer, for example, at range, if it's engaged at something that's 24 inches or less, and he's trying to get line of sight to you, you should be in position with other trucks so that on your wall turn, on your go turn, you are now punishing them for having to engage and getting closer to these shots. So as an Orc player, it's not always about just keeping everything safe into time for the WAAAGH. Sometimes it's about just staging up as much as you can, as safe as you can, and understanding the what you can bring to the enemy when they react to that. So keep all your guns into play, that way they can actually help you. But don't worry about I'm not talking about your pistols and such. I'm talking about your free, actually high damage secondary weapons that you can bring to the field. Now, for detachment tips, I think Orc players are kind of forgiving about more Dakka already, Tactical Brigade and Dread Mob, just because War Horde is so proficient. Don't worry, we're talking about melee, but I want to talk about Dakka. So if you were to look towards more Dakka and things that we're looking to play, I'm really in favor of Titanic models, really in favor of utilizing burner boys. You know, that the ignore cover potential from the strats themselves, but the burner boys themselves having a built-in assault from using that detachment is amazing. Additional AP on a variety of orc weapons is fantastic. From the custom mega blasters we previously talked about, to the Luta's weapons, to the variety of weapons that are on all of our walker units, to the burners themselves that we talked about, or flamers or scorches. The fact that it's not exclusive to certain keyworded units means that you should take advantage of it, especially if you're playing locally at leagues or RTTs. You can have a good time and still put up some solid results. Sustain 2 is still, I'm sorry, this is not Sustain 2, it's Sustain 1. I meant Sustain 2 isn't as well. But Sustain as well, having into this detachment is also quite viable. It just, remember, when you only have it on that one turn, you want more volume. That way you get more value out of that sustained potential. And then the strats that are built into that, you have a WAAAGH strat, and then you have the built-in reroll to wound strat that I think helps with a little bit more of the combined efforts or efforts of that detachment, which is more common on Tactical Brigade as we move on, right? Tactical Brigade itself is known as a combined ARF detachments. Of course, the +1 to hit orders. And as we spoke about the mechs and the Dakka support, keep in mind that the mech himself can give orders, and they can end up giving the ability to poke the transports and then allow the enemy to actually be given orders to the units that were advancing. Sorry, I read the chat because there's some good things being said in chat right now. But don't sleep on the fact that as we're looking for these same Dakka combos, it still goes for Tactical Brigade, that Orcs still have the identity in that detachment that we are just T5 bodies, trucks moving around. It hasn't really changed too much in that way, but fitting in the ability to give orders to the small skirmishing units of the Storm Boys or the boys themselves or the biker units, and then still allowing your transports to shoot better is actually quite viable when you're playing that detachment. And someone else actually brings up a good point here that I should bring up as well, is when you're using your trucks, keep in mind that if the enemy does tag those disembarked units, such as your tank busters that do end up shooting, they don't end up getting killed and they get charged, for example, they don't die, you can fall back and get back into the transport. Something else that I wanted to keep in mind, though, is when you're talking about SWAT teams, a lot of the times you can't stop everything. Like we said, you can't hide everything. But if you have a cheap secondary unit like a Luda or a burner, where it's still going to appreciate moving around in the truck, having activations, having bodies, having OCs, when that unit is getting destroyed, keep in mind that maybe the valuable unit, like the Knob unit, the Breaker Boy, the Tank Buster, gets out, and you do allow that blue burner boy unit to be on the side, kind of getting burned away. Now, why that's actually not horrible is because when we talk about something like a 10-man unit of Knobs, when that truck gets disembarked, that's a huge problem, because that unit can get cleaned up or completely crippled in one activation if it's exposed at all. So having a variety of units inside transport for SWAT teams is also important when you're using this firing deck momentum. Like, if you're utilizing a big mech, you don't necessarily have to put a big 10-man unit of Ludas on him. You can just stick 2 5-man units of Ludas in that truck. One can be attached to the big mech, and then still utilize the small mech to give it firing deck, and then just having more units for activations and not paying the additional 15 points for having quote unquote 10 Ludas now, because GW wanted to nerf us for that. Another thing here is the Dread Mob tactics. I think Titanic models do very, very well in more Dakka, but we've actually seen the Stompa get into play, not Spam get into play. I'm still appreciating Killer Cans for their viability into most versions of CSM that I've been playing, other than Hull Spam. So I think that still has a lot of play within Dread Mob itself, and having a lot of grots for OC is also a lot of play in itself from what we've seen. The button for sustain, lethal, or getting additional AP, as we'll talk about in the melee portion of this, will actually look pretty awesome. And then the throttling potential. One of the detachments that has the most reliability to one-shot a large knight is a Dread Mob detachment or a list. Now, of course, War Horde can do it with a bunch of different variety of fighting, but a lot of that relies on the WAAAGH itself. So it's cool. Dread Mob is one of the only other detachments that can bring down large knights without necessarily needing the WAAAGH to pull that off. So I think that Orcs still have a lot of play. Incorporate some Dakka on your list if you may, but not every list requires We still want to cover it with the tips and tricks. But then we have the devastating damage combos that the Orks can bring, baby. What's up, guys? Nice to see you guys. Bully Boys video's coming. Yeah, Bully Boys video is coming. Don't worry, chat. I'm watching, so keep it up. Keep it up, chat. So now we talk about the Orks' devastating damage combinations. A lot of the time we were, you know, when Breaker Boys came out, or if you've been playing since Index, right? You've had the conversation with yourself or other gits. Am I playing with 5 knobs, 10 snaggas, or Breaker Boys? The point differences between these units and what targets they want to go into was always the contentious part here. Well, now we've come to a place where it seems clear that if you're bringing knobs, you simply bring the big break of 10. So because maybe you're playing into CSM and you're fighting into a big 10-man unit of Possessed, a 5-man knob unit nor a 5-man unit or 6-man unit, excuse me, of Breaker Boys is really going to have a direct great output to take out that unit in a comparable kind of exchange of fighting or fight on death. So a unit like 10 knobs really wants to get in the fight with even 10 breakers, for example. It's not 10 breakers, 10 berserkers, for example. 10 knobs just has a lot more variety of combat targets, as well as the small, light armored hulls that exist now in the meta. So more Rhino transports, more Baby Knight transports, even Winged Demon Princess being T9, for example. But then alongside of those guys, whether you're playing Bully Boys or really typically War Horde, where you're getting the most value out of this unit, you are sticking a War Boss on it. Now, there is contention whether you're going to bring a Pain Boy sometimes for some trickery or some weird boss, but in all honesty, just simply stick to the War Boss. Don't get too tricky with it. Getting additional -1 to wound, as well as the ability from the War Boss capability as fighting himself, is just to be passed up for any hypothetical reason. But we do look at something at hypothetically that does get passed up a lot and is being kind of brought back around into play, right? Because you know me, I was a fan of Gaz since Index Hammer. So we have Ghazghkull. Now, the contention we always get here about Ghazghkull is if I'm playing War Horde, it's because I want a lot of activations. I want maybe 5 characters, maybe 3 characters, maybe 2 characters, where I'm just bringing more and more combat, enemy saturation, pressure, momentum, board control, all in one, just by bringing a lot of units and trash. And Gaz kind of offsets that. He requires a lot of investment of points, but really where we're at today is things just need to die, right? And that's kind of where we're at when it comes to big knights, big rules, big demons, big hitting elite army bricks. And Gaz is just that unit that allows you to have a huge momentum swing on that one WAAAGH turn for his lethal aura capability. Now, people look at Gaz and you think, well, it's just him and him is fighting what he's really trying to do. It's more about what he's trying to allow everybody else to do. So when the example list that we're going to talk about here, you're going to see this more activated and executed on and demonstrated when I talk about why we really need that Gaz lethal aura. But it really does come down to Orks love volume. Volume is king. Having knobs near Gaz is a great thing, but also having Snagga Boys. Now we have the Beast Boss and the Snagga Boys that have been consistent, persistent in this entire edition. So I'd like to see if GW is going to nerf them next edition, but in this edition, absolutely amazing. They're the starter kit. So if you're someone who's just starting or recollecting Orks or has been already playing meta the whole time, this is great that it still has complete viability in play. Now, the reduction of damage on vehicles is a little less common, but it's still here and there, as well as feel no pains, yet the damage of this unit is persistent. Snaggas themselves being able to reach up to strength 6, very important for tearing out big dumb breaks of T3 units and armies if you randomly come across them, like Gene Stealers, for example, fighting other Orks, fighting other T5 infantry, breaking the breakpoint on T11. Snaggas are just where it's at right now for the meta and things you can have variety of targets into. But of course, the critical 5+ fishing capability of this unit alongside the Beast Boss is its true value. The fact that you're essentially using Unbridled Carnage, or if you're using the Hunts, you can use that equivalent stratagem for critical 5+s, where I'm mixing the fact that the Snaggas are re-rolling hits against a monster or vehicle. That way, when everybody punches on 2+, you hypothetically pick up anything that is not a critical hit. So 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4 getting picked up and rolled again. That way I can just have higher spiking potential, especially if you're hitting on 2s. It is a very important ability that you can do, and it allows you to just punch through enemy armored units, enemy armored hulls, saturating the enemy with all of those little baby punches from your snagas and the boss himself. Now, if you don't want to be in Gaz's aura because you don't want lethal from the beast boss, that's fine if you're really reliant on just the beast boss getting his death doom damage through. But a lot of the time you can really offset the damage that maybe 1 or 2 6s that were rolled for the Snagga boss still end up giving you the potential damage to spike on everybody else, that it still is worth it from, hey, I just allowed my my Snagga boys to re-roll the hits and just end up putting 10 to 14 wounds. Well, that might end up just being better than being stingy on just your Snagga boss. So both are right answers. Both can be played into play, but both are really what are important in the meta right now. Then we have good old-fashioned Adwapa's Kill Chopper. Now, I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Why would I bring that? Now, of course, there's people who have different variety of collections that are trying to play, so I want everybody to just feel included, to enjoy stuff. And honestly, getting 1 unit of Snagga boys and a beast boss on Squigosaur into the game isn't out of the question for a vast variety of casual players. So if you want devastating wound damage, you don't have too many beast bosses, you're not really sticking it to break a boys. I'm not trying to diversify my collection too much. I don't really feel like investing in that. I want to use what I got. Don't forget good old-fashioned Adwapa on your beast boss and Squigosaur for 4+ dev damage, or you can stick this on your beast boss himself. That way, in all of his fights that he's getting into, he's getting dev damage, not simply his charges. So if you are playing War Horde, for example, and you're using 20 Snaggas, and you know that maybe you're going to lose a bunch of your Snaggas, but he's going to keep getting into persistent fights, maybe you want this enhancement on him so he can just constantly keep chipping away at the enemy. Then we have Breaker Boys themselves, anti-keyword in play. Now, where I'm at right now is because so many big elite devastating units have to be hit, and there's also units that are -1 to hit innately kind of floating around the meta. I'm super in favor of using a War Boss if you're using your Breaker Boys. Whether it's War Horde or Bully Boys, for example, War Boss getting put in that for sure. But something that is also kind of slept on that can be cool to see is if you're playing that Dread Mob and you have 1 Breaker Boy unit slipped in, for example, a Big Mac giving him -4 AP because he's pressing the button for additional critical 4+ AP will make your friendly knight players sad, because you end up having -4 AP into those knights. They don't have an invuln, and you just shred right through them with all. And if you don't have, if they do have an invuln, then simply pick sustain instead. So these are 2 good, fun, viable options that I find pretty cool. I do like the Drilla for the Big Mac for his damage 3 as well. So nothing to kind of be looked past. But something that I think people should also not look past is the viability of piling past enemy screens by multi-charging. So I should do a video on this. Let me know in the comments if I need to do a video on this, or if there's enough in 40K that exists. If there's enough that exists for you guys, you don't need me to do one, that's fine. But I've always wondered, do you guys want me to do one? I can do one as well for Orks. But the fact that you should multi-charge enemy units that have, if they have screens up and you really want to get to something behind it, of course, keep in mind that let's say that we have a Snagga Boy unit and a brick of Ghazghkull boys. And you have a 5-man unit of intercessors that are kind of fished along in front of maybe Gilliman, for example, or something. And he doesn't want to get punched by the Ghazghkull boys or the beast boss. What you could do is charge this intercessors with the Snagga boys, charge them on half the unit, block yourself out like I've demonstrated in other videos how you can block yourself out, or I can do a video on that all over again. But you can block yourself out with your bases so that not every single one of your units to get into combat. That way, that can't base to base. That way, the rest of your units can kind of create space for your Ghazghkull boys to now base to base that intercessor squad. Activate the Snagga boys, pick up the intercessors, and then activate your Ghazghkull boys behind them to pile in 3 inches and touch Gilliman and end up picking him up in combat. So utilizing the ability to multi-charge, pick up a screen, and then pile and pass that screen is incredibly important for Orc players to utilize, especially as we do not have a bunch of guns and we do not have viable shooting anymore, or the bomb squigs are even that viable anymore to pop holes in screens as commonly. So if you need me to do that, leave that in the comments and let's get the likes up on it. You know, from now on, you guys should be letting me know what you're doing in the comments you want to invest into in the videos, and get those likes up on it, and then I'll interact with it because I see them every day and you get to know I'm here to stay. So let's get into it. And another thing that I think people should get into is CP management. New people, keep in mind, on that turn 2, turn 4, you should be looking to have 3 to 4 CP in the bank, right? If you have a secondary that's only giving you points to achieve, let's say you have 2 secondaries, one's a 4-pointer, one's a 2-pointer. I'm going to achieve the 4-pointer, and I'm going to just let the 2-pointer be burned away because I'd rather assure that I have CP for my WAAAGH turn, go turn. Why is that? Well, I need enough CP to interrupt. I need enough CP to fight on death. And I need enough CP to unbridled carnage. So you need to understand that as an orc player when you're looking into, regardless of the detachment, is how much CP do I need my go turn for it to go? And you should be considering that very, very ahead of time proactively as an orc player. That's very important as all these matchups we're looking into. And a lot of these games are really being engaged with early turn 2s, turn 3s. The game's almost already set because the momentum swift and the aggression that's really being put out there from all of these meta bullies. So what's up with the guys talking about kill rigs? That's awesome. Kill rigs have won me a game the other day, boys. So yeah, the hunt kill rigs have a way to play. But yes, so remember, guys, the key to orc damage are dev wound damage, mortal wound damage, high volume of strength punches, volume of punches in themselves at good strength totals of 5, 6, 9, 10, and then a bunch of anti-keyword as well. So keep in mind, whenever you're not sure what to do, make it rain with volume of choppas, punches, and stabbers, boys, right? So let's move on to the list example. Now, here's my list example for Warhorde currently as it stands. There is some flexibility on this list for people to adjust. I wasn't trying to make it too meta shifty or changey or chasing. So a lot of these things can be substituted. We'll talk about it. You guys can see it right now live as well. And then at the end, we'll go through all the comments and chats and see what you guys are saying in case I missed anything. So right now, this is the video on screen if you guys are looking. We have 2 beast bosses, Ghazghkull, Dakka, 3 war bosses. I know what you guys are thinking about Gaz. I think he's just there because I'm trying to punch through a lot of these really high wound count enemies and vehicles and monsters. Maybe even something like Bellicor, for example. He just has so many wounds that you have to put so many punches and shots on him that Gaz really kind of helps assure that with a multitude of different units, right? It's not one unit can kill him now. It's any unit within Gaz's aura that I also throttle and unbridled carnage with can pull down these big problematic units. 3 war bosses. This is a lot of points, typically a little bit for me on characters, but like I said, current meta, I'm feeling it. If you don't feel like Gaz, this list works perfectly fine without Gaz. Then we move on to 10-man unit of Snaggers, of course, for the beast bosses. I do have a 10-man unit of boys. This can be swapped for a biker unit, another flashgate unit. If you don't have 2 flashgates, like I have shown on this for my SWAT teams, say that you only have actually own burner boys or you only own Ludas, you know, that opens up more answers for you or more options for you with, well, I'll drop the boys and I'll add maybe a commando unit. I'll drop the boys and add maybe Def Comp does, whatever it may be. Boys are just my option for skirmishing, flexibility, early game, trash fighting. I really just like boys, but there's plenty of options for that, like I just mentioned right now. I have 4 trucks. Of course, there's the point of, do you go to 5? Do you go to 3? Right now, I'm at 4 right now, right? I'm at 4. There is options here for like I said, taxiing or leapfrogging, where I'll start the boys in early and then I'll, you know, dump them out, and then something else will get inside the transport, and then I'll run the transport up the field. 2 breaker boys, because so many different targets right now in a good spot for breaker boys, and I like redundancy, but I don't need ×3 on everything, in my personal opinion. And personally, I did want the knobs that are on this list, right? So it comes down to 3 breaker boys or no knobs a lot of the time, in my opinion. And in this case, I wanted the knobs because, like I said, they have the volume and they're going to really stack really well with Gaz's lethal on top of the Snaggers, right? There's going to be different matchups where you're like, well, I want this guy instead of this guy. For example, let's say I'm trying to kill, gosh, I'm having a brain fart on that guy's name. The Necron character, you guys let me know. The Necron character that has the 4-up feel no pain, T9 infantry, reduce AP by 1 unit, his little aura buff, right? If I'm trying to dig that guy out of combat, my knobs are going to be the unit for unbridled carnage, 5-up critical hits, because I'm winning them on 3s, and then I'm also putting high volume of damage 2 on him. Is it Emotech? I remember his name. It's probably not. But if I'm going into a Catan, for example, well, then the Unbridled Carnage and Lethal Aura is going to look really well on my Snagga unit, for example. So, yes, a lot of the time, I still want to keep the knobs on this list. I did bring 2 flash kits. Like I said, you can bring some different kind of Dakka support if you want. and it doesn't have to just exclusively flash kits. They're just really versatile, as we know. Then we have the 2 Mega Knobs. If you can fit 3, totally do it. They're in a good spot at 3, but right now 2 is with the kill saws and 2 power claws. I like the variety of options. And then a storm unit. So this is a list for the Hull meta right now. Little substitutions here and there on boys and flash kits. But all in all, this is really just a lot of dev wound damage, a lot of anti damage, power claw damage, not a lot of shooting. But this is where Warhorde really wants to be for that pressure, momentum, swinging shift of just I'm crashing down on you and completely devastating your lines in your whole entire army. So this is where I'm at on that. You guys let me know what you think of the list. And now I'll get into chats as I close things out. This one a little longer than I thought it was going to, but hey, what's up, guys? Yes, we have guys saying, what's up? Do I bring a Gargantuan Squig off? No, but and a Stampa. Okay, I've actually played those together, a Stampa and a Gargantuan Squig off. It's a bit too much. Too easy to kill currently in the meta, how things, those 2 units are essentially your whole army. It's a little too much. People can figure out how to outscore that or kill the Squig off because of his position. But Stampa is very real and really actually has viable to play. Then we have the Bullet Boys. Yeah, Bullet Boys are going to have a video. That's why I've been playing them themselves. Just for everybody that still wants to play their Mega Knobs, hey, I'm totally in favor of playing them currently as well. Not that they're going to do super well, but they have their ways to be played, and we're going to talk about that in that Bully Boys video. You said Michael Mann is a Art of War plant, or wait, hold on, Smith. He goes, but in Man, an Art of War plant or a WAAAGH plant in war? Okay. Was he a plant for Art of War, or is he not plant being an Art of War? Well, he is himself a fungal plant that has been planted in Art of War, and they will come to grow the respect and love the WAAAGH in the way that they haven't before, and they will come to know WAAAGH tactics themselves, whether it's us, all, or me when I find them, and we get stuck in that. Then we go, I don't know what that is. I don't have a battle song, but if I did, I would definitely play it all the time. So someone don't give me a battle song. I'd be too much. Orks are in a tough spot right now, but we will persevere. We are. It's actually really hard to get full, consistent 5-0 results, but I'm very much under the lines that we can get 4-1 and we can consistently get 3-2, because from all the armies that we talked about that are in the meta and those top spots, we have play into all of those things in games that we can win. Not to be able to consistently beat all of them because of the vast differences between them. So we don't have all the tools, and the mission differences and who goes first and who goes second is a huge factor. And the challenger card's a little weird for us, but all in all, we can get results. It's just not at the consistent level, which is why we suffer in our win percentages. And Orks are just a hard faction to play. Art of War admitted that too, even though they give us the grief as a faction sometimes. They straight up admit that, it's a very hard faction to understand and play well. So there's a good question. He said, am I doing taxing or am I starting them in reserve? That depends on the layout and the actual matchup we're doing themselves. There's some matchups where I don't put anything in reserve because I need to have everything on the field to get in their face right away. And then there's some where it's like, well, I can't really close the distance quick enough, and I'll put them in reserve. Then we got, so otherwise, then please, Gork and more Breaker Boys. Yeah, they need the keyword. Well, that being said, guys, that's it for the chats. Thank you very much, and thank you to Andrew Stone. As I said, we're getting these after action reports getting on here, boys. So, keep that WAAAGH energy going so I can get those in real soon and let you guys actually see the games that I'm playing out there and the lists that I'm stress testing and having fun with. Some of them will be very competitive. Some of them will be thematic fun lists that I like to play. Everything in between, because orgs are out here to have a good time, even if it's not a long time. So thank you, Andrew Stone, for everything. Thank you for the gits that are here. Check out our paint competitions. Stompos are about time to persevere. And there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa!